Hello, everyone. Welcome to a nimble edition of ARG Presents. I'm your good buddy, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man whose talent is so stealthy we've never seen it. I give you the BRENT. Oh, wow.
What's
You're
up,
just
man?
just like David Copperfield over there.
That's right. Complete camera
Oh, yeah.
tricks.
Well done. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So, if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel. We made the deal. And this week, Brent, we're going to be playing games. I'll tell you, this is outside of my usual wheelhouse, but we're playing games that are called stealth games. Games based on sneaking around and being quiet and not just killing everything you see. An odd one, I'll tell you, I was... This is not a genre that I had ever looked into that highly, and to be honest with you, I didn't realize how small it was, especially in the wheelhouse of our consideration. You know.
Now you understand. I mean, I agree from a retro perspective, but you play a ton of stealth game almost every week.
Oh, do I?
Dead by Daylight.
Well, yes, but that's clearly outside the scope of this particular show. Generally.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying, you play more stealth games than you probably
realize. I will say, I'll give you that. But when you look back at these stealth games, and I had a good hard look back, I have played some in the past, and the one that came to mind, in fact, I would have picked this. In fact, I did pick it until I realized we'd already covered it. I had picked, Castle Wolfenstein from back in the old days. The original stealth game for me, where you snuck around trying to escape the Nazi castle. A great game. I mean, obviously, by today's standards, graphically, was the lowest of the low end. But it had everything you would require a proper stealth game to have. You had your costume stealing and you're sneaking around. It had bribing. It had the kind of stuff you would expect in a stealth game. What surprised me, though, is when you look past the obvious stuff, the stealth game genre the pickings were slim, weren't they, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, you have to realize stealth games were only invented in 1979, and a lot of people are like 79. No, it's like 82. No, 79. That is when the first release. Well, let me back up. Not released, but a type-in game was invented called Shoplifting Boy. And Shoplifting Boy was I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize in advance. Hiroshi Suzuki on the Commodore PET in 1979. And this was just a university student that was getting into game design. And they were like, we're trying to come up with these new designs. And he was walking around a 7-Eleven, which in 79 in Japan, 7-Elevens were kind of new. They were just coming into the market there. And he noticed all the shelving was this real high shelving. And he thought, man, if someone wanted to just steal something from this place, it'd be super easy to do so. You could just, because you can't be seen over all the shelving. And he took that concept and he went back and got on his Commodore PET and programmed in Shoplifting Boy, which ended up landing him a job. But they hired him to do concept work because this was innovative. No one's ever done anything like this before. And but it was never released. It was only released in type-in game form. So it was something you could grab a magazine, do a type-in for, just like we did last week, and you could play Shoplifting Boy. Now, some might say, well, that doesn't count. That wasn't a released game. You can't call that the first. All right, fine enough. In 1980, he released Shoplifting Girl. It had updated graphics. Concept was pretty much still the same. And the concept for this game is you have rows of shelving, and the merchandise on it is represented by dollar signs. And you go up and down the aisles trying to steal everything in the shop, which
Yeah.
is a little ambitious for a
Yeah.
shoplifter.
They
But there
got
you
big
go.
pockets. They got the old. They got the portable holes.
That's right. So, what makes this a stealth game is at the top of the screen is the shopkeeper, and he roams back and forth at the top of the screen, looking down the aisles. And if you duck behind an aisle when he gets to you, he just keeps wandering around. He keeps doing his job. But if he sees you, he will run at you and capture you and throw you in jail. On top of that, there's also a time limit that will count down. If you run out of time, you also get thrown in jail. I guess that's the time limit is supposed to represent the police on their way, because apparently this guy knows you're kind of being shady. He's already called the cops, and now it's just a matter of getting all the loot you can and getting out of there before the cops show up or before you get caught actually in
Listen,
the
when
act.
shoplifting boy or shoplifting girl come into your store, you don't hesitate to call the cops. You know they're gonna go.
That's right.
Yeah, you know, just by their names, like this can't be good. You know,
Hey, I know
never-
him. That's shoplifting boy.
I never heard of this, obviously, and I'm going to link below to the excellent little mini documentary on this game that I stumbled across when you were mentioning it to me. But
Yes.
you got to give this game credit. It actually looks pretty good for a typing game. It's even got an opening cutscene. It's got a closing game over cutscene with your guy in jail.
Or if you succeed, if you get all the loot, it has you running out of 7-Eleven.
It actually has the 7-Eleven in the picture at the beginning. It's labeled as a 7-Eleven.
Of course, the 7-Eleven is a towering
Yeah, well,
skyscraper.
that's the way they did it. You never know in Japan. You know, there could have been 2 floors of manga on top of the convenience store stuff. But I was surprised. I'd never heard of this, obviously, and I ended up finding versions of this that also went up all the way up to the one of the Coco systems had this, right, Brent? The TRS-80s.
Well, I personally looked at it on the MC10, the TRS-80 MC10. That's where I found a version that you could just jump to online, load it up, and give it a play. Is the game good? Yeah. Yeah, it really is. The shopkeeper doesn't move predictably, so it is a little bit random, although it's all about risk and reward. How many things can you grab off the shelf before you have to duck back in and, wait till the shopkeep goes back to the other side of the store or away from the store. And the aisles are long, and there's places to hide in the middle, but getting the items at the very bottom, or especially at the very top, right next to where the shopkeep is walking back and forth, it's a fun pressure luck element with scoring. There is a way to win, to succeed. It's a one and done game. If you get caught, it's over. But I really enjoyed this. I think this is certainly something. It's so easy to emulate. It's literally 2 clicks and you're playing. I would highly recommend checking this out. Being the first recognized stealth game is a big deal, and I think this needs more appreciation for the history of video games than it gets.
I think it was you did a good job bringing this to my attention. I'd never heard of this before. When you if you look forward from this, and we mentioned a game like Wolfenstein, the stealth game genre was sort of mostly dormant. I mean, you can make a case for different games, and you make another case for another one. But the big year that everyone points to is the year that changed the stealth genre would have been all the way up into 1998. When you get games such as the one I covered, plus you've got your Metal Gear Solid game, and then you've got your Thief, all came out that year. That sort of set the tone. That's not to say there weren't stealth games before that. I mean, obviously the Metal Gear game was a sequel. And Britt, do you remember when me and you rented the original Metal Gear for the NES way back in the day?
Absolutely.
And
although that was a completely different everything. If you go back through gaming history, I mean, obviously some of these same elements were present throughout all of its lifespan. But the NES version is really kind of a different beast. But I love Metal Gear for the NES. It was a game I could never beat. but I tried and tried. I rented it several times trying to get all the way through it. Hard game, incredibly brutal game, but a lot of fun.
We played a lot of NES games back in the day. I know you played tons, and I would always give them a shot. But that's a game that stood out to me even before it came back as a game that was unusual, because really that was a game that I don't think I'd ever played anything like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was a very unusual game. And so you've got to give that game a lot of credit as well. But overall, I was taken with just the fact that the genre of stealth games really, there were a handful of games that you could put into this category up until the late 90s. Of course, then after that, you've got now it's a much more popular genre than it was back in the early days. So it was kind of neat. I guess I never paid much attention to the thought that there just weren't that many to start off with.
One of the best games of all time, in my opinion, Deus Ex. You could certainly go a full stealth route in that game. It wasn't required per se, but that's probably my favorite stealth game. Metal Gear was probably the first game I played in the stealth genre. And I really, nowadays, stealth games aren't my thing. It's not that I don't like. I enjoy the Hitman games.
Yeah.
Where they are actually stealth is the thing. It's not you can go ham and just shoot everyone and go crazy, but the main purpose of the game is using your wits, finding different ways to accomplish your goal, and it's so open. These stealth games where you have to get from point A to point B, and you have to do it the way the developers wanted you to do it. You have to stay behind this row of boxes, or you had to, crawl through this vent, and it was the only way to get there. I find that very restricting. And really the genre overall, I find very restricting. I like being able to do my own thing when I play a game, which is probably why I don't rank stealth games in. I wouldn't say I hate them, but I really don't enjoy them.
Well, it is a genre that I haven't played all that often, but there is fun to be had in there, and
absolutely,
and,
and when a game does it well, I absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's I hate games. I guess this is what I really hate. I hate games that have 90% not stealth, and then that forced shoot in stealth section. Like they're trying to mix it up. I don't think stealth is a viable mix it up mechanic for most games. It's so off the pace of anything else you could possibly do. I think it's a big turnoff for me.
I understand. Well, with all that in mind, and a ringing endorsement from Brent for stealth games, it was our duty to try to find a couple games that we could play in the genre that we hadn't already played as well, because that was also a part of this year. And I will say the first game that came to my mind, aside from the one I mentioned, which was playing Castle Wolfenstein, was a game that I loved that was pretty stealthy called Mirror's Edge. But I thought it was just too far down the line. And calling it a stealth game, I mean, it sort of is. You don't want to do combat in it, but it's more of a parkour game than anything else.
Well, it is a parkour game, but it's a parkour slash stealth.
But I did go forward more than I normally would, Brent, this week.
Yes, you
did. And I went ahead and picked one of and I mentioned them. In 1998, there was that sudden surge of these games. They all sort of came out at the same time. You had Thief. You had the Metal Gear Solid game. And then you had the game that I ended up choosing, which was Tenchu Stealth Assassins. Now, I'd heard of this game, Brent, from back in the day. It did get a lot of word of mouth in my circles. And I did have a PlayStation. In fact, I may have even had this game, but I never actually played it. And so this was I wanted to pick something.
You owned it.
Yeah, I wanted to pick something that was different and something that I could try for the first time for the show. And so I went ahead and went to Tenchu Stealth Assassins. This is a game published by Activision and developed by Acquire Corp. And released in, of course, September of '98 on the PlayStation. This game was directed by a fellow named Takuma Endo. He actually directed several games in this genre. He directed all the Tenchu series, and the early ones anyway. There ended up being about 9 of these, I found out, which I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And I'll get into why you get to that number, because there's a lot of the stuff that came out in Japan that we didn't touch here. He also was the guy behind the Way of the Samurai series, which I've also heard of that. He also did the Wizardry game from 2009, which I also have heard of, but I've never seen. The music in this was composed by Noriyuki Asakura. And the Tenchu is pretty renowned for having a really nice soundtrack, which I would not disagree with that assessment of the soundtrack. I thought it was a pretty nice soundtrack. So, what's the scoop on this game? Well, when you think stealth, in my mind, the ultimate stealth character is your ninjas, Brent. The whole basis of a ninja is to go in, be stealthy, take care of your business, and then get out. You know what I'm saying? And try not to get raised such a suspicion, because you're usually a lone wolf.
Sure.
So in this game, you're in 16th century Japan, and you get to pick which ninja you want to play as. You can play as Rikimaru or Ayami. Rikimaru is a guy, and Ayami is a chick. And you go on missions for your master, who is Lord Goda. Okay, and this is set up. And I will say, I like the setup of this straight away, because it's set up, it's mission based, and so you just kind of run through the missions. And once you complete a mission, you don't have to do it again. You can come back to it. So eventually, you can end up skipping around between the missions. They give you a goodly amount of missions, and there's also a training portion to kind of get the grips with what this game is. And what this game is, I'm going to try to describe this for someone that's never seen it. If you took the engine of, say, one of the early Tomb Raiders, okay, or maybe like Tomb Raider 2, up to the smidge, and then basically made it a ninja game, that's sort of the way it looks. It's got that early, not super early, but say second wave 3D game, third person perspective game, where the camera is behind the shoulder of your ninja as they romp across these various environments. The game's, it's not perfect right out of the gate. I instantly had problems having the camera be where I wanted it to be. If you've ever played a game called what was the name of that game? Battle Arena Toshinden, which is a 3D fighting game. It's an early PlayStation fighting game, which I used to play this a lot. Whenever you move real quickly in a circle, the camera sort of lags behind, and this game is exactly the same way. So part of the game challenge is actually getting in focus your opponents. Early on, that's something you have to get over right away, right in training. You're training yourself to understand how the camera operates as much as you are how to use your weapons, because the weapons are pretty self-explanatory. Walk up to sucker, cut in half. That's pretty much, it's not that difficult. Now, once you get to the training, you can start running your missions. The missions in this, and they're actually pretty varied, Brent. I'll list that. I got a big list of all the missions. I'm going to go through them all. But I like the fact that they tell you what the mission is pretty much with the title. The first one, punish the evil merchant. Then you've got deliver the secret message, rescue the captive ninja, cross the checkpoint. I like this one. Cure the princess. Destroy the foreign pirate. That sort of stuff. Execute the corrupt minister. There's no subtlety to these names. That's what you're doing on the mission. And before each mission, there'll be a cutscene, excuse me, that tells you what exactly you're supposed to do, and it kind of gives you hints on what to do, like don't be caught when you're killing, don't kill innocents, blah blah blah. So if you were just a ninja with a sword, that'd be kind of lame. So because your ninja's got all kinds of like Bond-like gizmos to keep it fresh, right? The best thing he's got, aside from his weapon or her weapon, and they have different weapons. The guy ninja has just a proper ninja sword. The lady ninja has sort of like two short swords, effectively. Different, and she's quicker, he's tougher. So they actually do play quite a bit differently. But the missions are pretty much the same. So when you go to a mission, they give you basically a place where you can arm up, and you get to pick from what you want to take with you. There's a ton of armaments in this. I was really surprised actually by the amount of cool stuff you can pick up. Of course you're not a ninja if you don't have shuriken. You've also got things to give you health. There's also stuff like grenades. Like I guess there's like explosive potions you throw. You know, they're not actual grenades.
Fire pods.
There's poison stuff you can use. There's colored rice you can get to kind of mark your path so you don't get lost. Which I admit I never got to the point where I needed to use the colored rice, but I'm sure there's somewhere in there you knew to use it. And then there's a bunch of other stuff you can end up picking up that are like real. When you complete a mission with the rank of Grand Master, you can get stuff like Super Shurikens, Lightfoot Scrolls, Fire Eater Scrolls. So I'm assuming you can breathe fire on a sucker, Protection Amulets, Sleep Gas, all kinds of crazy stuff that you can see a ninja using. So if you start the game with a like we'll talk about the simple mission, we'll talk about the first mission where you kill the merchant. This game doesn't hold your hand, and I'll have to say at first I was thrown by this, but then it became a feature. The game basically says, here's the layer of this guy, go. And then that's pretty much all it gives you, even on the first level. All the levels are dark. For one thing, it's night and you're a ninja, but from what I read, one of the reasons it's like that's because of the limitations of the hardware. They couldn't just show everything that the ninja would do. So, for example, the first mission, kill the merchant, you have to come across a wall, and then you have to basically go through the compound and find where the merchant is. All right, and that involves using your grappling hook. Now, when I saw that this game had a grappling hook, and given the camera situation, I was concerned. But actually, the grappling hook system works pretty well. It's not that hard to target it. You've got of course, you've got the PlayStation controller, so you've got a myriad of buttons, and there's plenty of buttons set up, and they've got one set up just to target the grappling hook. You can switch between your weapons, and so you've got written at the bottom of the page here, and you see each icon. So you just flip over to the grappling hook button, you hit the thing, and you basically have a little aim marker that comes up. You aim the grappling hook, you throw it, and your guy swings in. It actually works pretty well. And it also, that doubles as the same sort of a thing you'd use for like your shuriken, your throwing stars. You can, if you've got those switched over to on weapons, you'll throw the throwing star using that same aiming technique. It's a little tougher for those because you're sort of usually in a hurry when you throw them. That's one reason that being stealthful is good, because if you can take your time and aim, which is nice, with those things. So in the first mission, you have to use your grappling hook to get across the wall, and then you get in the area where you're running across rooftops, which is awesome. It's just like in the movies. You can see a ninja running from rooftop to rooftop. Ultimately, you make your way into this like an upper, basically like an air hole in the top of a house. You kind of make your way in for a cutscene. Then you go in there and you start really getting into the mix where you're actually fighting guys. It's done real well. And all the missions are sort of like that. Some of the missions, like for example, the second mission, you're trying to get a message to your master, and so basically you just run down a route and the guys come to you. In a lot of ways, you can make this game as difficult or as easy as you want, depending on what you do. Once you get to the point where you know where stuff's at, you can pretty much make a beeline toward it and actually get there without a whole lot of difficulty. A lot of times in the early levels, I got to level 3. Which I thought was okay, given the amount of time I had to play this. And I got pretty good at the first couple levels because after I played them a few times. I mean, you can actually, once you figure out, for example, in the first level where the evil merchant hides, once he runs off the first time, you can just go right to him and take him out. Now, I will say the boss battles in this are interesting. There's a lot of good dialogue in this. There's cutscenes and dialogue all the way from the beginning. I really liked the man ninja had a really cool voice. I looked up to see who the guy was that did it because it sounded familiar, and the guy's name was Paul Lucas. And from what I could tell, this was his first voice acting role in any video game. He went on to he was in a bunch of stuff after this, but this was his first role. And I thought he did a good job as the guy ninja. The chick ninja wasn't quite as good, and some of the accents in this are a little wonky. You know what I mean? They're a little. They're Americanized Asian accents, so you know how that goes. I'm sure they sound much cooler in Japan than they do here. They sound kind of dumb here, but overall, I thought the voice acting was pretty solid in it. But anyways, once you get through to a boss or a lead character, there'll be a little tit for tat in there. This is the end of your journey, blah blah blah, and you kill him, and then your guy will say some kind of thing like, I released your spirit, so long, and then you move on. I will say at the end of the first level, and this is where I really fell in love with the game. I went through the first level trying to find this big fat jerk merchant. You get him cornered. You've killed all of his flunkies. I was playing the chick at the time, and I was very low on energy. And she's like, "This is where you die, old man." And he's like cowering in the corner. I'm like, I'm gonna nuke this sucker. And I walked over to kill this guy, and this sucker pulled out a pistol and just blew me away. Bam! And then once he killed me, he cackled. He's like, "I've got money," he said. And then it showed your character at the graveyard. So I will say, little touches like that, I didn't expect that. If you're quick enough, you can just go over and cut this guy in half. But I was gloating at the time, and so he blew me away. So that was pretty cool. The bosses in this are pretty interesting. The ones I saw were like, for example, there's this big fat guy. I think it was like the 3rd level that has a pet bear that you've got to tangle with. He's pretty cool. There's also dogs in this you have to tangle with. There's a lot of open world area, so you basically just walk around and people attack you. If you're stealthy, you're okay. At the bottom of the screen, there's like a stealth meter. Okay, now this became commonplace in these stealth games, but to a certain degree, this is a little bit different. Basically, it will basically give you a question mark if you don't know about your stealth. It will give you like kind of a cold blue if you're okay, and if you're starting to get seen, it kind of gives you the exclamation point flashing. Like that. You're getting seen. You're getting seen. Thief did the same thing, and so did. So did Metal Gear. Who knows who the first ones to do it? But I mean, this was pretty common sense stuff. Back in the day, to have some sort of meter to tell you that. If you play this game correctly and you sneak up on people, it does the old cutscene death, where you kind of come up and just kind of walk up behind them and slit their throat quietly, or flip them over and choke them. You know what I'm talking about? Where you don't really have to do anything, and so that's always sort of satisfying when you can pull that off. But it's not something you can do every time. Overall, though, a fun game, lots of stuff to do in here. And I really enjoyed it, bro. What were your impressions of Tenchu? Had you played this before?
I have played this before. This is something we had in our fraternity house when I was in college.
So you've given this a good thorough looking over then.
Nope, I will suck at
okay.
it. I sucked at it then, I suck at it now. I hate the controls in this.
Really?
They use tank-style controls where you turn left and right and then press forward to walk. And the reason why they do that is you can pull backwards and to block.
Yeah.
And I hate it. I could never. I mean, I know how they work. I understand the concept, and I was just awful at it. The camera. I'm going over all the bad stuff first because I'm not going to kill this game. But I want to get all the bad stuff out of the way. The camera in this game is, I mean, I know it's early 3D. I understand all that, but the camera in this game is among the worst I've ever seen.
It is tough. It's a game of its era.
Having to swivel that thing around, because it's okay when you're just walking around, right? And you're doing your stealth thing and you're sneaking up on enemies. All it's fine because it's very in control. However, the first time you get panicked or you've got, say, 2 people on you for whatever reason, you're done. You're absolutely done. Because if it flips around just the right way, you'll be spinning around trying to find the enemy while they're just carving you up. So, horrible camera. I just can't get past it. So, bad controls, or not bad controls, awkward controls, bad camera. So, what is my opinion on the game? It's a good game. And the reason why I say that is it has elements that you can tell work well for what they're trying to do. You can just bull rush this game, go in sort of swinging, just run to all your objectives if you know where they are. I think like the speed run of this is like 30 minutes
I'll watch
long.
the speed run, and this guy literally he goes like it's like a beeline with the ninja speed thing. He just goes and goes. It's crazy how quick he goes.
But if you don't, and I think once you get to that point, it's a little actually disheartening because that's not how this game's meant to be played. This game is meant to be you sneak around courtyards, you target guards, you know mentally mark their locations, and you go up and you take them out or just avoid them altogether. The fighting, once you actually get into combat, if it's one-on-one fighting like for a boss or something, it's pretty good because you can control whether you're slashing left, right, if you're doing upswings, if you're doing stabs, excuse me, that sort of stuff. And I think that's mainly why the controls are the way they are, because it gives you that type of freedom past what you could get if left and right actually moved your character left or right. And you can, let me be sure everyone understands this, you can strafe with a button press. And you can sneak with a button press. So you have other elements.
You press up against the wall or sneak around,
Right, well, let's not even talk about up against the wall thing. That camera is so finicky when you go up against the wall. It's
turning
a nightmare.
Corners up against the wall is a real
listen,
when it comes to the camera, I again, having played those old Tomb Raider games, this game reminds me a lot of the original couple Tomb Raiders with the camera. And the truth of the matter is, in this game, the camera is the thing you need to master as much as you do your ninja skills, because there are ways to move in this game where the camera will not hurt you. It's never going to help you, but it won't hurt you because of the way you have to position yourself. And like I said, it works okay for some stuff when you're shooting and aiming. You've got plenty of time. But if you're in a hectic battle with like 3 or 4 guys or animals, and they're all coming at you, and you're trying to position yourself in a way to attack them, the camera is a problem. And it was just that was a product of the era.
Well, it wasn't. I don't think Tomb Raider was ever as bad.
Well, Tomb Raider didn't have nearly as much combat, and it didn't have hardly any hand-to-hand. It was all with guns. It's a whole different ball game with that.
I agree.
Something else.
Now, another thing I want to mention is you were kind of giving the voice acting and stuff praise. The voice acting is B-movie level stuff.
The guy Ninja, I gave him praise. He's the one I liked. He had a cool voice.
Yeah, he actually delivers his lines almost like
he
an
went on
actor
and did Shenmue as well. So I mean, he was pretty obviously he was well regarded.
Right. Well, Shenmue is also known as a very B-level movie, maybe C-level movie. The dialogue in this is cheesy as heck. It tries to take itself serious, and then there are sections in the game where the dialogue is so cheesy, you have to just say, you know what, pick a lane. Either you're going to go historic samurai, honor, blah, 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 or you're going to go guy has secret stone in his belly type of dialogue. The woman's dialogue is absolute trash.
That's not.
She's supposed to be this sassy, like up and coming female ninja type thing, but it is, first of all, the voice actor is unfortunate, and her dialogue that she's had to read is just the absolute dumbest stuff you've ever seen. So, but I don't hate it for that, because you just have to say this is a B-level samurai movie, and then it's fun. It kind of plays off itself.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit there. I want to touch on this before you move on. This game establishes what I liked about this game is it really makes you, if you feel like that you're a ninja who has rules, who has guidelines, who has a mantra. There's a section that's where you rescue another ninja. It's because which normally you can't do that. The ninja's code won't allow you to rescue anybody. But your master waives that. He waves you from the code. I like the fact that they put that in there. I like when the dialogue that they have. I think it sounds pretty cool. Now, I like that kind of schlocky stuff. I didn't think it was. I think some of this gets lost in translation. Some of it they try to make it cool guy style and make it more for like a young teenager would be like, oh yeah, that's cool. But since I sort of am still a teenager internally, I thought it was pretty cool. I will admit the dialogue. Some of the voice acting's not good, but some of it's okay.
I think all of it is pretty bad except for the main male ninja. I think he does a good job. All of that said, the total package is very much a standout game for its era. I don't think it holds up particularly well on revisits, which is why I certainly wouldn't seek this game out to buy. Is it worth playing? You know what? I don't think so. I don't think it's worth going back to play if you haven't played it before. If you've played it before and you're revisiting it, I think that's fine. I think if you are someone who is looking for a new stealth game to play and you're wanting a retro title, I don't think this is where you want to go. I think Deus Ex is a much better representation of a stealth game that still has these kind of graphics. It's that blocky polygon look. Now it's a totally different genre. It does have hand-to-hand if you want it to, but it's not set in samurai time. It's future dystopia time. But this game I think is just a little too rough around the edges for me to recommend to someone who is trying to find a new stealth game to play.
This is a game I would say that, in my opinion, if you can get past the limitations of the camera, I think the game's fun. The missions are fun. I think you get that feeling that you also got in Tomb Raider where you're literally a man out in a huge empty world that you can just go around and explore, and occasionally come across bad guys. But it's a really fun feeling that this sort of engine gives you. I really bought into the whole ninja stuff. The missions are cool. I like the fact that this isn't one of these lame ninjas. This guy goes out and executes suckers. Hey, you're a big, fat, greedy merchant. You're going to die. What do you think about that? Oh, you crossed my master. You're toast. They have their own moral code, and the moral code's whatever their master says. That's the way I like it, man. These ninjas don't take any prisoners. They go out there and kill suckers. It's the way it should be. There's magic in there. I like the fact that they threw in animals. I thought all that was neat. And even when you die in this, of course, there's a little cutscene. You can start back over. You can't use the stuff you brought in with the equipment. You have to go basically find it. It'll be out there scattered around. But I mean, it's not super bad if you get killed, so you can go back in.
That's pretty punishing.
Well, it is, but it makes you think about what you're going to take in, because just in case you die. And I thought the skill level in this, I'm no master of these games, and I did okay. I thought getting the third level in 1 week, I thought was pretty good, all things considered. So I think the difficulty level is not too high, and I definitely think this is one that you should check out. I want to touch a couple more things real quick before we move on. I'd mentioned this game had a bunch of different releases. Of course, the Japanese version is slightly different. There's a little subtle differences, but they did a re-release of this in '99 in Japan. Now get this, Brent, this is awesome. They re-released this game with some new features and a couple new missions, but the main feature was they put in a mission editor. Okay, you can make your own missions. So then, late in the year, they released a disc of just people's missions. They had like 100 and some missions that just fans had made. They went and picked the best ones and released those. That's pretty cool. And this is only in Japan, of course. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be neat. You could probably come up with some pretty cool missions to do it yourself. I thought that was awesome. I looked at some reviews on this. It got good reviews, man. Edge gave it 7 out of 10. EGM gave it 7.75 out of 10. Game Informer 9 out of 10. Game Pro 4 out of 5 stars. Game Revolution gave it an A. GameSpot 8.3 out of 10. IGE 9 out of 10. Next Gen gave it 4 out of 5. So it had good quality scores. It's considered a landmark title in the field of stealth, for the obvious reasons, because it did so much in terms of advancing or even starting it or restarting it, I guess the best way to put it. Metacritic ranks it the 54th top game of all time, or excuse me, Game Informer. That's pretty good. Its sales were outstanding. One of the few times we get sales numbers, I guess because we went so far forward. It had over 500,000 copies in Japan sold by June of '98. That was before it got released in the States. As of 2003, the game sold 730,000 copies in the U.S., so its total sales were over 1.2 million in the U.S. and Japan. Pretty good figures right there, Britt. They made a few bucks on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
They did have sequels, as we mentioned. I did not look at the sequels because I didn't want to be spoiled, because I may come back to this somewhere down the line. One other thing I wanted to mention, the UK had a real problem with ninjas. I don't know what their problem was with them, but they hated throwing stars, so they had to edit the game in Japan or in the UK and took the throwing stars out and put throwing knives in. Which I don't know if I'd rather be hit with a throwing knife or what's the difference? Yeah. I don't even understand the difference. It doesn't make any sense. Now get this, one last thing, and you were talking about old kung fu schlockiness. The motion capture in this was done by a very famous martial arts actor, Sho Kosugi. If you know anything about old martial arts, you know who Sho Kosugi is, man. Plus, he was on one of my all-time favorite TV shows, The Master, from the 80s with Lee Van Cleef. Him and his son, Kane Kosugi, did the motion capture for the two main ninjas in this. Bam! That's awesome right there. That's proper trivia. If you know who Sho Kosugi is, you know you're a cool guy like me. So there you go, Brent. Overall, a fun game. I don't think we got any Discord reviews on this. Did you notice if we got any or not? Let me have a quick look here. I don't think we did. So with all that said, Brent, we're going to move on down the line. That was my game. What did you pick for us this week?
Well, where you kind of look modern, to the more of the surge of stealth games, I went back to the beginning, and we already talked about the very first stealth game. Now I want to go to the first commercially viable stealth game, and this was an arcade game released by Sega, 005. And obviously this is a Agent 005 if you want to get kind of technical, although that's not what the marquee says, sort of affair. This is obviously a throwback or a homage, if you will, plagiarism, if you want to be a little more evil about it all. This is a play on 007, and the game has you playing Agent 005 as he maneuvers around different environments trying to steal secrets and get them back to headquarters. This is a arcade game from 1981. This is the first stealth arcade game. In fact, the only two games before this in the stealth genre are Shoplifting Boy and Shoplifting Girl. So this is the next in line.
Yeah, this was considered by a lot of people as number one for the longest time.
Right, and this actually has the Guinness World Book record for being the first stealth game. Although Guinness, just get it out. They get more things wrong than they get right. So, what do you do in 005? It is a multi-stage arcade game where your very first stage has you dropping on top of this building or row of buildings, and you get the secrets automatically. So now the game is not about getting the secrets, it's about getting out with them. So you have to run through town and duck into a different building to avoid all these guards that are after you. And we'll talk about the less stealthy level first. There's a chance that you will get run into a building and be in an ice rink, as in like ice skating. And it has a perimeter that you can walk around to avoid getting on the ice, but that's where all the guards are funneling in. So you have to kind of go across the ice, and you get these incredibly wacky, messed up controls while you're doing it, sliding from side to side, trying to get through this ice to avoid the patrols that's coming after you. Once you do that, you'll grab a hold of your helicopter, and you get whisked away, and you'll land back into the city to steal more secrets. Once you get past the ice level, and you get to choose between the ice level or the warehouse. And the warehouse is where the huge stealth elements come in. It is a warehouse full of boxes, and you'll have one guard come in behind you, one guard patrolling the perimeter of where you're going, and then 2 guards coming into the building with flashlights. And the building is pitch black. You can see the boxes, and you can see the guards with their flashlights, and they're shining it up and down these rows, although they're not really like rows, perfect rows and columns. The boxes are just kind of all over the place with different type of gaps being either small that the flashlight will go through, but you can't walk through, or large where you can walk through it, and of course the flashlight goes down. So if you get discovered, the flashlight shines on you, they will run after you at like 3 times speed. But you're not totally screwed. Unlike Shoplifting Boy, which once you're discovered, once you're seen, it's over. That's the end of the game. This actually allows you to keep running. You can kind of duck in behind some more boxes, turn a corner. And unlike modern stealth games, the guards just don't go like, oh, well, okay, I guess he got away. They continue to hunt you the entire time. They want to find you. So they'll slow back down if you manage to get out of their line of sight for long enough, but they will look for you where you were and then branch back out from there. So if you get through the warehouse, you get back on your helicopter and you escape. Now you have to get out with the secrets. And this is the most bizarre level, and that's saying something since
this
you were on an ice rink just a few moments ago. This is the action part of the game where you have to shoot down the police helicopter to enable your escape. But there are these like floating bombs on either side of the screen that
it looked like balloons
go left and right. Well, the balloon, okay, or from the bottom, you've also have balloons coming up at you, and the copter.
It's helicopter Pooyan.
Yeah, sorta. And you've got the police copter at the top of the screen shooting missiles at you. So you have to stay alive until the police copter tries to engage. And then if you shoot it down, you're free. You fly on to the next city and try to do it all over again. A few reasons why this is certainly a stealth game. You can't kill the cops or the guards in the overworld map or the warehouse or the ice rink. The only time you actually kill your opponent is in the helicopter stage. And that's really, it's your helicopter's killing another helicopter. The rest of the time, your only weapon is basically a laughing gas gun, where you will incapacitate the officer, but they'll just fall down and start laughing, and you can't step over them. So you can actually screw yourself more using the gun than if you didn't use the gun. So it's kind of, you might want to, like, if there's one coming up behind you, that's pretty safe to go ahead and incapacitate him. But otherwise, you have to really think about if you want to actually do it or not, because when they're laying on the ground, they start laughing, and you can't get around them, so it actually blocks your path. So I hate and love this game both.
Yeah.
I think the overworld map, where you're ducking into a building to avoid, the big stakeout in the very beginning, I think that's really well done. I think it's basically just a stage select, right? But it has it where if you go more up the screen, the buildings you go into are worth more points, or you can just kind of duck into the first one you come to. The ice rink stage is silly, and I guess they're trying to play off kind of that, Bond, especially early Bonds, before they started taking themselves so serious, was full of these silly little
Roger
things,
Moore
right?
era in particular, my favorite, yeah.
Right. So I think that's what they were going for here, was because I can absolutely see this in an early Bond where the Bond skating around on the skating rink and trying to avoid capture. Cops are flying all over the place and sliding into walls and whatnot. So I get that. I'm okay with that. I don't particularly like that stage, but I'm okay with it. The warehouse stage, where you're sneaking through and the guards have their flashlights, top notch. Top notch. You have to really be on your game, because when the guards see you, they really come at you with this aggression. And they have to touch you to get you, which I think is also just a good design decision. I really enjoy that stage. And then the helicopter stage is just so left field. It's incredibly difficult. All the stages are difficult. But the helicopter stage in general is just an absolute shoot everything. It's almost like you're playing Centipede. I don't know. I don't like it. And I think it actually brings the game down a tremendous amount because of it. Aaron, what'd you think about 005?
You know, this game was known to me. I'd played this long ago. And the main reason was that for the longest time, if you had a MAME cabinet, this was always the first game that came up. Now, eventually, what was it? The 88 sports game, 88 Olympics, with a little apostrophe jumped in front of it. But this was the game I saw the intro screen for hundreds of times as I turned on my MAME cabinet over and over. You've got to look at this game. Listen, I agree with most of what you said. You got to look at this game from when it was released. This thing's from 81. And the fact that they're attempting this sort of game, it's ambitious, okay? So I'm going to give them credit for that. I agree with almost everything you said. I thought the helicopter level was, I mean, it's not the best. It is weird. But it's different. And the fact that they put a shooter segment into this, I'll give them credit for the attempt of doing that. The ice skate rink, I sort of agree with what you said. I understand why they would do it, but it's not good. Once you get on that ice, you're pretty much boned. Yeah. I mean, you're screwed.
Really hard to
The
control.
warehouse stages with the flashlights, even back in the day, I thought this is kind of cool, kind of a cool concept. If you get caught in that light, you're boned. You're almost certainly going to get caught because
you can get away, but it's hard.
I mean, well, they'll get you. They move fast. And the overall map, yeah, you're right. It's sort of like, it reminds me sort of like something like picking a room on Venture. Like, it's sort of safe, but sort of not. So you better not dilly-dally, you know. You got to get in there and get that taken care of. I mean, again, let me put it this way. How many ports of this came out on a home system, right? The answer is none. Okay, which is unusual. What does that tell you? It tells me two things. The game was not successful.
Wrong.
Well, I knew you were going to go there, but it was not successful. And number two, it tells me that
that's
I know,
wrong.
but I'm just saying this is when you hear it, when you see a game that doesn't get ported, what's it tell you? It means either the home systems at the time just couldn't handle a port of this,
Bam.
But also I don't think did this even get released in the U.S. at any capacity. I never in my whole life I never ever saw the arcade version of this. I never saw it in any, and I was in a lot of arcades, even in '81. So I'm guessing if this ever came to the U.S., it couldn't have gotten a very wide release. And I'm assuming if it didn't do well here. I know it did well in Japan, but I'm sure it didn't do well here. And I'd say that's part of the reason why it never got any sort of home ports. What do you think? Give me the scoop.
Let me do you some learning.
All right, please
here,
take me to the school.
This was JAMA. This was a Sega's early JAMA system,
Really? This was a JAMA?
It's called raster scan.
Okay.
And its whole purpose, now this isn't just 005, this is the cabinet and the innards and everything. Its whole purpose was to have owner-operators buy the system, and then you could swap games in and out, sort of like JAMA. You got the board, you just plug in, but the base system where it wires up all the controls and all of the screen and everything.
So
bam! That was what
you're not saying this is a
do.
JAMA machine. You're saying this is one of those early switchable games systems.
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah, no.
I was going to say because for '81, I know JAMA didn't exist, so you're nuts. But yeah.
Yeah, no. But it was the same concept.
All right, I understand.
And they wanted people to buy into this concept, and this was the first game that was released on that concept. And you can say it was because of that, or you can say it was because people like 005. But this had a marginal success in the arcades. The reason why you probably never saw this, Aaron, is tons of these PCBs were translated, pulled the chips off of, and they made monster bashes out of them. So this was only in the arcade for a short amount of time before people took their boards and upgraded to the next thing. Even though you had games you could just swap in and out. I'm not talking about this. They actually converted the boards themselves into a new game. Another thing, this did have a console port release in the schedule for the ColecoVision. It just never actually came out. So they were working on it. I don't know why it never came out. Maybe they said, okay, this isn't commercially viable. Or maybe they said, we can't do all 4 screens on the ColecoVision. We're just going to move on. But it did have a port. It was in the works. It just never got released.
So, I think Coleco could have handled this too. I think it could have handled this.
I think it would have been close.
Maybe not all the screens, but maybe.
I think it would have been close. A few other little tidbits just before we wrap it up here. Of course, this was a play on 007. They actually looked at getting the rights to James Bond, and it was going to just be too expensive. So they were like, oh, okay, well, this isn't 007. It's, I don't know, 005. And bam, there you go. Completely original character. So, good times. Do I like this game? Would I recommend people play it? No. It is too hard. I can usually loop it. I can almost always loop it once. Looping it twice gets difficult, and past that, it gets impossible. Because the way this game increases in difficulty is the guards get faster. Yeah. And when the guards get faster on the ice rink level, you're screwed. It basically forces you to go into the middle in the ice rink area, and it becomes just unwinnable.
It's just luck. Well,
it's not luck. No, because Dwayne Richards holds the high score of this at 1.5 million, which is a perfect game. So obviously he didn't just luck into doing it. There is skill involved.
It's beyond me. That's for darn sure.
That's fair. It's beyond me too. But I think it'd be unfair to call it luck.
There you go.
I want people to play this game, but I can't recommend it. I think there's too many flaws. It's too disjointed. If you look it up and you kind of like what you see, and you're like, man, I could see playing that, by all means, look it up. I mean, it's worthy of playing. But to seek it out on my advice, I can't do it. The game has great sound, especially for an early 91 game or 81 game. And the visuals are very pleasing. Yeah. Everything kind of looks like what it's supposed to look like, minus the helicopter stage. I
agree.
So yeah, there you go.
So a couple stealth games. I would say this is worth looking at, albeit briefly. But it's not something that is necessarily going to be in your wheelhouse. Speaking of wheelhouses, Brent, you know what that means. It's time to spin this sucker.
It's time for bad transition.
Listen, what are you saying? That was gold. That was professional guy.
It definitely snuck up on me.
This week, Brent, we've added 2 pieces to the wheel arena here. We've got a piece here called Pokey Chip Games. Pokey Chip Games. Games that use the Pokey Chip. And as our retro rewind, it's DOS. It's DOS.
Man, I could go for some DOS action.
All right.
Let's spin us up some DOS, Aaron. Don't let me
listen,
down.
I'm going to let you down no matter what. Here we go.
Yeah.
A mighty spin. Here it is.
Come on, DOS. Come on.
Just missed it.
We're so close.
It's Pokey Chip Games. Got it in its first attempt, Brent. This is a piece submitted to us from Josh Malone, Brent. Pokey Chip Games. Now, what do you think about that genre, Pokey Chip Games? You don't know anything about it, do you?
I'm going to have to do some research, yes. I mean, I know what it's referring to, but I wouldn't be able to go like, oh, well, that means this and this and this.
So This means we will be playing games that require the Poke Chip. Fair enough, simple, and to the point. We'd like to thank everyone that popped in on us today. We had a good crowd in the old chat room, Brent. Good lively bunch. And we'd like to thank everyone for checking us out, downloading us. Brent, any parting words before we take this thing to the house? Well, he's gone. I guess that means no. So, until next week, keep your head down.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Hello to our YouTube subscribers and our Twitch followers. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector graphics and Bartbit for an amazing closing theme. Want to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at our new Patreon at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Graham W. Vetke, Rollo, Olaf Hope, Anthony Jarvis, Terry Howard, Gary Heather, John Schaller, The Slow Norris, Frodo NL, Steve Rasmussen, Bernhard Lucas, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Rob Black O'Hara, Andy Craig, Dave Velociraptor, Retroalgy, Hermsky, Roushi, John Dykeman, Jerry Dennington, Z9K9, and Mr. B. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us out by leaving us a positive review on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Email it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.